McBride.
And you're the company you work for?
Last company was the Mersey Docks and Harbour Board. Harbour Company. Prior to that at sea from a boy of 14 till 1948. 1934 till 1948 at sea in the Merchant Navy.
You're only a lad.
Oh, yeah, hard times.
And various companies sailing out the port of Liverpool and all over the country.
We're just saying with the last lads about how sad it is to see the river empty now.
It
was.
It is very sad, and also it's, they've been on about this memorial to the Merchant Navy at the pier head. And similarly, they've been doing documentaries, and they phoned me up because they come and take my photo in my home with my medals. And what did I think about it? Well, I said, I'm all for the memorial being put up at the pier head, but I didn't want my photo splashed over the weekly news.
Why not? Not even the sun?
So,
Page 3?
just that we're having this monument to the Merchant Navy at the pier head. The one that's there now is not to the Merchant Navy. People get mistaken. It is for the ships that was taken over by the Navy, merchant ships, armed cruisers, mine layers and very, but not Merchant Navy personnel. A lot of them were naval personnel.
It'd be better if they'd said all the lads who was sunk and survived, and they had the pay stop on that day. They should give them the back pay. That'd be a better idea than.
It would be, but another thing, the Merchant Navy, they were talking about this young reporter asked me, could I remember any of my friends who were lost? I said, it's 50 years ago, dear. I know plenty of people who were lost, but I can't recall their names. That's a meaning that I couldn't, you know, if you think back, they're not the spur of the moment.
No, that's right.
But I still say they should have that memorial there.
Oh, I do too, yeah.
Did you get torpedoed at all?
No, I wasn't myself, but I was done a lot of time. I was up in the Russian convoys. I was stationed in Murmansk for 12 months in a heavy lift ship, and I was across the Atlantic a few times, and I was in the convoy.
PQ-17?
The one at the, where's Tom Adams, he could help me out in this, the one with the armed cruiser got half. We left Liverpool with 35 ships.
That's PQ-17.
I'm not sure,
Yeah.
anyway we left, I think we had 35 ships, I forget. And
11?
we got in, we had 15 in our convoy when we got in.
Oh.
A lot went off the North Cape of the bomb.
Oh, I see.
But we lost a lot of friends in that convoy.
You certainly did. Yeah. The PQ-17.
I don't know, because you see, that's another thing. Merchant, we didn't have names of convoys when we were at sea.
Well, we were the same, we didn't know what a convoy was.
Naval personnel may know the convoy. All you knew you were in a convoy and you had to station out.
Yeah.
You didn't know what convoy.
Well, most of the ships were told which, when you're in convoy, where the North Atlantic convoys, they used to have a number, and it either started with the letter N or S.
Yeah.
And N meant that if you were going across from America, you went north about.
Yeah.
And if it was S, I know we were in one convoy coming out of Middlesbrough it was, and we went as far south as Cape Town before we got up to anywhere near New York. Yeah. It was there was a differential, and the Russian convoys, I think, all the figures started with P.
Yeah. Up to a certain date. But how I remember this PQ-17 was, I picked the book up. See, I was in the engine room. I wasn't in communications, but they, all the things like that. But my brother gave me a book, PQ-17, and he said, "Were you on it?" And I said, when I read it, Godfrey Wynne was on it, and he wrote the book. So
that's right.
That's how I
that was the infamous one where the Royal Navy took up because they heard the Sharnos had broken out from Norway, and they left
the Tirpitz.
The Tirpitz was the one that got out.
And when you mentioned 35 ships, there was 35 left in this convoy, and only 11. But the worst part about it for me, I was on a mine
engine room,
and we pulled up when we got the order to scatter, and I sneaked up from the boiler room actually, and we were just passing this small merchant ship, and the dustman was standing in the well deck,
Yeah.
and our captain saying, "Sorry to leave you, best of luck." And you know, even now, I just read a book, and it says, after we'd left them, and we were heading north,
Yeah.
guilt, you can't describe the guilt, because my father and my relatives in the American Navy, which
Yeah.
made it worse, of course. And when I found out later, reading another book, that they were getting signals from these ships we'd left, and we didn't go back to help them. Now, on the way we went to Nova Assembly from these scatter points,
Yeah.
and if we'd have seen a submarine, or sunk a submarine, we'd have picked up survivors, you know, the German, and yet our lads were signalling for help. We're
Yeah.
being attacked by
Yeah.
German bombers, and there was nobody with them. And I said, well, what a bloody carry on, you know.
I've
Anyway.
got a book given to me, you know, at the Battle of the Atlantic. I've got a book with all the Russian convoys, from the start to the finish, all the ships that were in it.
That's right.
You've got that book, and it gives you all the ships that were sunk, the escorts. It's a very interesting book. Tells you all the ships.
You're very quiet, which is unusual.
Right.
Nobody has asked me to speak.
What about Captain Mandel? You come and sit in, Eddie.
Well,
I don't want to disturb anything. Come on, you're up to
Come on, Eddie.
Your turn.
That's it.
I suppose the worst thing is to ask Neil to start because he never stopped.
Like it.
We've only a couple of minutes, gentlemen.
Okay.
Okay. Come on, Eddie. Give me a seat.
He can sit on the floor.
You'll have to follow round. Will you,
My name's Jim Smith. During the war I was in the Atholl line, and for what it's worth, a little story when we were bombed in the Medi. I was third engineer on the Atholl Chief, and I'm in the mess room at the time, about 9 o'clock in the evening, and the alarm bells went. So Jim dashes out to go to the boats, and you know the way they had at the end of the alleyway, they had 2 blackout curtains. So you opened one and you got in, and just as I got in, down they both came with the blast from the bomb, and I'm underneath them. I can't get out because they're weighted with sand all round. The rest of the engineers are diving along the alleyway to get to the boats, and they're all walking on them. And one of them said, "Where's the third?" And I heard a voice say, "I think we're walking over it." And somebody else said, "I've always wanted to do that."
Lovely.
But we survived.
I remember we were talking about Jim Crow, which I think everybody who met Jim couldn't help but sort of fall in love with him. He's such a wonderful character, you know. And he always had that twinkle in his eye.
Yeah.
It was, I think it's part and parcel of being Irish, you know, and he didn't know whether he was telling the truth or not. But he always said to me, he said, one thing that you can never ever be right when you're at sea. He said, I was on a boat once, he said, we loaded cattle in Londonderry, and we were coming into Liverpool, and he said, it was blowing, really was. So he said, those days, he said, I got on the phone at London, in the ring head office in Liverpool, and I said, it's force 9, you know, what shall I do? And the Marine Super was on the phone, it wasn't Ronnie Morrison. And he said,
Nix.
what do you mean, what should you do? He said, well, you know, I've got a full cargo of cattle, they're going to get battered, and once you got to the lorries and the vet was aboard, there was too many dead or broken legs, you have to hide you. And the super said, you sail. He said, okay, you say sail, I'll do, sail. So he said, we got over, fortunately, everything was all right. He said, I went into the office a couple of days later and I saw the super. And I said, what would have happened if there was a complaint by the RSPCA and the company was fined because we sailed in all this bad weather? We said, you'd have been to blame. He said, why? I said, I wouldn't have said it. He said, so do you mean to say, if I didn't sail, I'd have got the sack, and if I didn't, and all the cattle were damaged, I'd have got the sack? Correct, he said.
Jim Crow had many yarns to tell.
Yeah.
I mean, I was shipmates with Jim, well, nearly 50 years. I know he's told some great yarns.
Oh.
And the turkeys was the best when he come home with the turkeys. He'd tell you that one.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
That's right.
oh,
Yeah.
coming home with the turkeys, yeah.
could you introduce yourself, please?
Well, I'm Derek Clulow. I served my time at sea with a firm called Bolton Steamship Company, and ended up with Blue Star and left Blue Star, and I came on the Manchester Ship Canal as a pilot the last 34 years. and I spent 10 years at sea. But, I was fortunate in the fact that I would think that all these gentlemen served from 39 to 45, and I only served from 44 to 45, so I
It's just the look of the draw, isn't it?
yeah, I
mean,
consider
When were you in the Blue Star, then?
from 52 to 54.
I served with it.
What ships were you in there then?
I did a couple of trips on the Paraguay Star and the Brazil Star, then I went on the Royal Star because I'm fed up with going to South America, and I wanted to see Canada and all that on the West Coast,
yeah.
and then Aussie again.
My son was in the Wellington Star, the Southland Star, all sailing on the West Coast.
They were beautiful ships, had the finest funnel in the fleet, and they had the worst food.
What's your outstanding memory of being at sea? I'm sure something must have happened to you could tell us about.
Yeah, but unfortunately we haven't got time to go through all.
Yeah, but that's the idea of it, isn't it?
Yeah, there was a number of outstanding moments. Fortunately, you always remember the happy ones.
Oh,
the sad
course.
ones, you don't remember an awful lot. Coincidences happen and all that, but just offhand, off the cuff now, I don't know. It'd be very difficult for me to. I had so many happy moments, and as I say, I suppose the only one that I thought was a bit incongruous that I was on the one ship that we had a second engineer there as well, and he was a good yarn teller, but we had a full cargo of mules, and we were taking them up to the north of Italy from the African actually it was Tunis, and we got mined. And they said abandoned ship, and the second engineer to this day can hear him saying, "What about the mules?" I won't tell you the captain. Yes.
You're on camera, be careful.
One at a time or all together?
The lifeboats were the old type on the davits that they were already swung out, and by the time we got everything assembled, some wise person noticed that the ship wasn't sinking any deeper. So we stayed aboard, and we were about 28 feet forward and about 12 foot aft. And we did manage to creep into a small port in the north of Italy. The name escapes me.
Well, Alec, I think we're in an awkward spot now. We wanted to give us your name and your company. You know.
Right, my name is Captain Harry Keezel. I've been a member of the Anchorage Club for 18 years, and I've been second mate, and master at sea, and 30 years I finished as superintendent in the Mersey Docks and Harbour Company after I finished. Now, I'll tell you of one of my experiences. When I was in a ship called the Brittany Coast, we were going from Liverpool round to Portsmouth, north about. We had to call in a place called Loch Ewe on the west coast of Scotland, which was a deep water lock where all the convoys congregated there before going across the Atlantic or going round the coast. It was manned by naval ratings. When we arrived in Loch Ewe, we had 2 days to wait, and eventually we left with the convoy. We were Vice Commodore, and we had on a naval rating and 2 additional sailors. And in the meantime, whilst we were there, they fitted us with one of these barrage balloons, which we all left with. It was attached to the mast, and they had a reel on the winch, and you could. So off we go, north about, round Cape Wrath, all flying these barrage balloons. About halfway through the Pentland Firth, a gale came up, and of course down came the barrage balloons, round the mast, on the deck, and everything. So eventually we got rid of those. We sailed round, and the convoy was about 12 ships and 3 destroyers. escorting us round the coast. The first experience we had with the enemy were when we were abeam of Peterhead. The enemy had been dive bombing the prison at Peterhead. I don't know what they thought was going to be there, and they attacked our convoy. Luckily, we survived that, all of us. The 3 naval vessels got rid of the planes at the time. We carried on further down the coast, and the next worst experience we had was, it was Sunday afternoon, about 1500 hours. We were going through the Straits of Dover. I was second mate, and I was up on the bridge, and the engineer said to me, Harry, he said, can you see all those silver streaks in the sky? So I looked up, and lo and behold, we were attacked wholesale by planes. Now, on the cliffs at the time, we had our radio going. There was the commentator at the time called Richard Dimbleby. He was a war correspondent, and he was actually watching us being attacked in this particular convoy, which is true. And he was broadcasting it to the nation, and we could hear it coming through on the radio. He was saying how the ships were being attacked and so and so. Anyhow, in the short time that this took place, we were down to 2 ships when it finished, and 1 destroyer. We picked up the survivors. We managed to get through it all right, but we had engine trouble due to the bombs dropping round us. We picked up the survivors of the Norwegian ship that was astern of us, and we took them into Dover. We likewise did repairs in Dover, and in 2 days' time we sailed on our own then to complete our voyage, which was round to Portsmouth. Now, out of that convoy which left, there was about 3 of us and 1 destroyer left out of that convoy, which left Lockheed on the way round the coast at that particular time. That's just one of the incidents that happened to me.
The losses were astronomical, weren't they?
They were. The losses were
Terrible.
because, I mean, in that short time, really, and the panic, we had like 7 ships with us then and 3 destroyers, and we were down to 2 ships. We were 1, another ship, and 1 destroyer, and that was the complete load. We just went down like that.
The weather itself round the north of Scotland is bad enough hazard, isn't it?
Pentland Firth's
Well,
a
the
place,
weather
isn't
around the
it?
Pentland Firth, and especially if the convoys, you used to go the speed of the slowest vessel. And if the slowest vessel was 9 knots, there's no open devil of you going through the Pentland Firth with the tide against you, because you just wouldn't make headway whatsoever. And I've had many a terrible experience through the Pentland Firth. We've lost our hatches, we've had wire reels ripped off the deck in the gale, and a massive Norwegian tanker, brand new one, just right up on the Pentland Skerries. And funny enough, if I can tell you that quickly, about 5 years afterwards, I joined the Mercydocks and Harbour Company. I was in the Marine and Dredging section, and we had an order that we were to dig a deep passage from the old Canada lock that was, before they built the new lantern, and into the Brocklebank graving dock. They were bringing a tanker down from Scotland, which they refloated off the Pentland Skerries. And funny enough, it was this tanker. And they got her into the Brocklebank graving dock, examined her, and found that the damage was too great, that they just refloated again and towed her away for scrap. And I had to laugh. That was about 5 or 6 years after that tanker eventually came into Liverpool. Where she went to after that, I don't know.
Okay, thanks.
Is that any?
That was great, that's very
It's
good.
just one of my experiences.
Very good one, wasn't it?
What about our friend now?
My name is John Albert Coleman, and I joined the Anchorage Club about 6 years ago.
Would it be
About 6 years ago, and I'm an infantry man. But the only trouble, you see, with this place being all seamen, you see, but I said to myself, well, am I qualified? But apparently I am, because I used to be an engineer on these landing craft. And we've done a lot of, you know, assault things like, you know, going towards the beaches and that with the troops and all that there. And that's the only reason, that's the only sea part that I have. when all my family was seamen, all Royal Navy, apart from my father, he was on, what do you call them, you know, the minesweepers.
Yes, I
He
know.
he was on a minesweepers. He used to say to me, he said the Navy was the best thing, you see. So I came over to Renshaw Street when I was a young kid, you see, about 16. And he said to me, he said, right, he said, don't bother, you can go in the Navy. So when I was 17, he said to me, he said, right, go to medical and what have you. See, so I'd done the medical and I passed it. And then I went back to the Navy place there and he said, there's no vacancies. I said, you must be joking. So the other two brothers were still away, you see, at sea, and they came back. And he said, are you on your Navy? I said, no, so I've been banged in the army. So I went from there, you see. Then I got this job, well, it was he said like he'd go in the landing craft. I said, no, not like it would look me that, so I'll get back to the sea, so I've done that. But we had a few skirmishes like air raids and what have you, know, but other than that it was quite reasonable.
Yeah, but in some invasions the landing craft bore the brunt.
Well, we did, I know that.
I mean, the direct hits as he topped the ramp.
I know.
It couldn't have been very nice.
Another point there, yes. But it wasn't too bad, really, you know.
See, in the invasion, the weather, one thing and another, and the confusion, some of the landing craft went to the wrong places. And when
well, I agree with you there, yes.
the landing ships, the LSTs,
that's right, yeah.
I mean,
The tank landing craft.
the chap told me, he said they lowered the ramp.
Yeah.
The first tank was ordered out, and it just disappeared under the
But
water.
I was on the troopers, you know, the small one. You just
LCIs.
landed up the. But it wasn't too bad, really. Well, no, we lost a few men, but I mean, that's it. That's war, isn't it?
Oh, that's terrible. Well, your father on minesweepers, can you remember the name of one?
Oh, I couldn't tell you. He's dead now.
Because I was on nothing else all through the war, on minesweepers.
Yeah.
Okay then.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.